Hi, this is Rob Packard from Medical Device Academy, and this is a short video explaining the 9 required tasks for creating a new procedure. You might think it's no big deal, we just write a procedure. But if you follow these 9 steps, you'll make sure that you have a quality procedure that meets all the requirements the first time. First step, figure out which procedures you're going to write first. You might not realize this, but there are 28 required procedures in ISO 1345-2016. There are 19 procedures in 21 CFR 820 for the FDA, and there's not 100% overlap between those two. In addition, you have country-specific requirements. So if you're doing business in Europe or Canada, you'll have additional procedures you'll need. You might also have procedures that are required for your specific type of device, such as if you have software, you might have a software validation procedure that you need to explain your process for software documentation, software development. So deciding which procedures you're going to write and prioritizing them from the ones you'll need at the beginning of the implementation of your quality system to the ones that you need when you finally launch your product on the market commercially. You decide when you're going to release those, each of those procedures, and which ones are the priorities and which ones are much lower and will be later on in the process. So that's the first step. Prioritize and schedule the writing of your procedures. The next step is to buy standards that are applicable. There are 2 standards organizations that I buy standards from, AAMI.org for US standards and brand new standards that are just being released. And then another organization I'll use is the Estonian National Standards Organization, EVS.EE. I can usually get my European standards there and I can get them much cheaper. So depending on what I need, I'll go to one of those 2 sites to buy standards. And it's more than just ISO 1345. You need risk management standard, you need usability standard, you need post-market surveillance standard, you need electrical safety standards, you need biocompatibility standards. All kinds of standards are applicable for medical devices, and you need them both for the testing as well as for the procedures that fundamentally control how you run your business. So lots of standards that you will have to purchase, and knowing where to get them and making sure you keep track of when they get renewed and changed is very, very important. The next step is to decide which clauses in those standards are applicable. Not all the clauses will apply. For instance, if you have a battery-powered device, there are going to be a whole bunch of clauses in the electrical safety standard that wouldn't apply. If you have a non-sterile product, a lot of clauses in ISO 1345 don't apply. So figure out which clauses in the standards will apply. Next, you have to assign the process owner for each of the processes. We call that person the subject matter expert, or SME. For those of you that are Lord of the Rings fans, our friend here, Smeagol, is helping us today. That person is responsible for knowing that standard. Whatever standard it is, whatever process it is, there might be 1 or 2 or more standards that are applicable to that process, and they need to be the expert in that. They should know when that standard is being revised, what the status of the revision is, when a draft is released. If the FDA is in the process of recognizing a brand new standard that was released a few months ago, you want to know how that stacks up with when you're actually planning on doing regulatory submissions, so you don't do all the testing to the wrong version of the standard and you are prepared for changes that are coming down the road. This is especially important in Europe, where you're expected to be compliant with the current version of the standard at all times, unlike in the US, where you're only required to be compliant with the version of the standard that was applicable at the time your product was actually cleared through a 510(k) process. So assigning the person that's responsible is critical. This is not something that one person can do. It requires multiple people to keep up with this. It's very demanding work, and there are a lot of standards, and not everybody is going to know everything about every standard. Now you get to write your first draft of a procedure. You could jump right into the procedure itself, but my recommendation is start with a record, the form that you're going to fill in. Create that form so it has all the required information in the order it's required. So the first requirement of complaint handling should be the first item in the complaint handling form. And make sure that everything is in there, line by line, in the order that it's requested. If you can, even number it. So add every single row, give it a number if you can, if you have enough room. And that way it makes it much easier to cross-reference that with a flow chart. A lot of people like flow charts for a process, helps them with decision trees. So you might have numbering on your flow chart. This example doesn't have a flow chart, or doesn't have numbers on the flow chart. But then also you can use those same numbers to reference in the outline of your procedure. So if section 7 of your complaint handling procedure is the section that explains the step-by-step process, then 7.1 might be the first cell in your complaint record. 7.2 might be the second cell in your complaint record, and so on. Once you have you've created your form and your flowchart and your procedure, now it's time to have somebody else take a look at it. Have an independent reviewer. This is not the time to do an audit. You're not ready for that yet. An audit is just a sampling. You want somebody the first time through on a brand new procedure or a complete rewrite of a procedure to do a thorough review of 100% of the requirements. You don't even want to send it to review and approval yet. You want somebody else that understands those requirements to read it through line by line and make sure everything's required. And we call that a gap analysis. If you want to learn more about how to do a gap analysis, Matthew Walker wrote an article on it, and I've provided the hyperlink there. The next step is training people. Every company needs to define what the training requirements are, what procedures everybody needs to be trained on, and they have to provide that training. They have to show effectiveness of the training and competency for those people. So all those things should be included in the procedure. What the training requirements are could be in a device description, a job description, but the effectiveness and competency requirements should be defined as well. And if you don't want to create your own trainings, you can always purchase webinars. Our company does a lot of recording of webinars, and so if you go to medicaldeviceacademy.com and you click on the webinars link, this is just a mock-up of what our website's going to look like in the near future, because we're doing an overhaul on the website. But we're going to have a place for upcoming webinars that are brand new, that are being recorded in the next month or two. And then we have the on-demand webinars, both free and the ones for purchase. So we have lots of webinars, and there's even more than what's on the website if you're interested. But webinars is a great way to do training. We also offer exams or quizzes for people that want to demonstrate training effectiveness. Once you have everybody trained in your company on the procedure, now you want to approve the procedure. You could actually swap the order. So this could be the approval, step 7, and training could be step 8. It doesn't matter which order you do it in, but you have to be consistent. So if in the top of your procedure, if we go back to this one, if you see here where it says effective, right here, that's the date the procedure is effective. One way to do it is the date that you approve it is the day it's effective, and you do the training before you approve the procedure. The other way to do it is to make the effective date maybe 30 days after you have approved it, to give people 30 days of training on the procedure after you've approved it. So either way is acceptable. You should be consistent and indicate both in your training procedure and in your document control procedure what the policy is for effectiveness or the effective date of a procedure. So going back to approval, you approve the procedure, whether it's electronic or paper-based approval. You typically have more than one person, at least the author and one other person like quality manager, but many companies will have 3 or 4 people approving procedures. The fewer there are, the easier it is to get approval, but you still need input from other people to make sure the procedure doesn't negatively affect other departments. Last but not least, we have to actually use the procedures and generate records. Your design control procedure, you're going to want to be developing records throughout the entire design process well before you've even gotten anywhere near the end of implementing your quality system. Whereas things like recalls, there's not any records to generate until probably after you have ISO certification. So depending on what procedure it is, you may have more or less records. Certainly not as many as in this picture, but it should help you with a visual reminder of you need records. Whether it's paper or electronic, you need records to demonstrate objective evidence for implementation of any procedure. After you've done that for one procedure, you go back to the beginning of the process and repeat. So we go back. What is the second priority? The first priority might have been document control or record control. Usually document control is the first procedure people will approve because you need that to approve all the subsequent procedures. After that, maybe record control. And after that, you might include some of the design related procedures, such as design controls, risk management, usability, and if you have software, software development. So those might be the top 6 that you would put at the very beginning of your quality plan in the schedule. But which one is the top priority depends on what you're working on, and what type of device it is. Some of the things like recalls, vigilance reporting, adverse event reporting for the US, which would be medical device reporting, mandatory problem reporting for Canada, Canadian licensing, all those procedures might be much later at the very, very end. And then you have some that are going to be in the middle. So we get to the very end of the process here where we've approved everything and we generate records. We rinse and repeat. Now what? Well, now it's time to audit the system. And that's when you do a sampling of the quality system. But if you have any procedures that you don't know how to write, you need an example of one, we sell almost 50 procedures on our website, so you can contact me if you need any one particular one. If you went through a certification audit and they said in the stage 1 you're missing this procedure, I'm sure we have one for you that you can use and implement in your quality system. We can help you edit it so it matches all your other procedures, or if you just want to buy a turnkey quality system, we sell one as well. But that's the 9 steps of how to create a quality system procedure. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to contact me by Skype, by email, by phone. And if you want to schedule an appointment, that Calendly link will link you directly with my calendar so you can schedule a call with me anytime. Thank you and have a great day.